And welcome back. It's time for this week's Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan of CapitolBeatOK.com. And Pat, obviously the topic this week, the tornado. We've talked a lot about the local, state, federal response to the tornado and its aftermath. You've reported on these things, but I notice you also want to talk about the incredible private charitable response to what happened on Monday.
I guess we're kind of used to it in Oklahoma. It's the way we treat each other. There's been a lot of help from around the country, of course, as well. Of course, the Baptist relief teams were deployed almost instantly. Some of them were already in their vehicles on the way to the site by the time the tornado lifted back into the sky. Salvation Army, the Chabad Jewish Center on the north side of town, providing a lot of help. This weekend, I know in my church, Catholic Church, and a lot of other churches, there'll be special collections taken up to benefit the people. And then you have a little bit of alliteration here, the Kochs, Kaiser, and KD. The Koch Brothers, George Kaiser of Tulsa, and Kevin Durant. Not just the money, but those guys walking around the site after everything had happened. It was all just very touching. Devon, Continental, Apache, a lot of other energy companies, Love's, Verizon, U.S. Cellular, AT&T. I mean, you know, it was really impressive, and I was moved by it. They're headed towards $100 million in private money to help Oklahoma City and more with recovery.
Yeah, and there are still benefit concerts that are still coming up, so
right.
Who knows where it'll end. How about the impact of the storm at the state capitol?
Yeah, turn from the sublime to the practical for a second. It did have a big impact. It was interesting. On the direct practical side, it stopped discussion of the two museum projects. That was one thing. It generated absolute unanimity for the taking money from the rainy day fund in order to finance the state's part and help the communities, the state's part of this whole thing. There were a lot of unanimous votes, which you might not have expected at the tail end of the session. One practical effect we'll talk about, and I know in a future episode, is that Insure Oklahoma may get crowded out as a result of a lot of the discussion and arguments towards the end of the session, and not entirely because of the Obama administration. So what I saw in all of this is a lot of introspection. I'm trying not to be cynical or skeptical about it. I saw a lot of people talking about, you know, who is my neighbor, kinds of biblical type discussions, and I think that's good for us. And of course, everybody's thoughts and prayers are with the families that lost people. And we're all looking to the future.
Well, and then, of course, we've got the president coming on Sunday. What do you expect to hear from the president? What do you expect from that visit?
Well, I think I expect the best. I think the president will more than rise to the occasion. I hope he thinks about and looks at the long term. One of the things that happens in tragedies is the immediate response is there, including the government's role, but also, like we're talking about earlier, the private sector. I hope he'll spend time talking to families, and I think he will, I assume he will, listening, uniting us. There's plenty to fight about, and we can get back to that next week maybe. I think we've already got kind of an icon like the Pietà type picture of the firefighter holding the child after the bombing in 1995. Well, this time it might be Big Dog and Little Dog, and that whole story, which was just, you know, wonderful. All the individual stories accumulating in our hearts and our memories in the Oklahoman, on News 9, in other news venues, my own reporting. It really is tugging at me. I hope that the president will become a witness for Oklahoma and for its people, our amazing, kind, loving, generous, caring human beings who live and work here. And when things like this happen, the image I've used is it's almost like you got a whole state full of firefighters. You know, they're running towards the conflagration and the destruction rather than away from it. And that, I believe, typifies who we are out here. And we have to be willing to accept some help now for a while.
Well put, Pat. You can read more about these and other stories at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron. Have a great weekend.